The majority of my professional career has been focused on, in human resources specifically, but focused on organizational and talent development. So, and executive coaching and training, that kind of a thing. So I've spent the last 20 years in various HR roles, and really focus on helping people refine their skills, and most importantly, even now, owning their power, owning their brilliance so that they can advance in their career. And that involves not just like mindset and confidence, which is a big part of what we're going to talk about today, but strategic workplace strategies. How do you navigate organizational politics so that you're able to get ahead and not get bitten by the politics? And then strategic career planning. So those are really what I focus on. In my coaching practice now, after 20 years of working in corporate human resources, I really saw a need, particularly for women. We're somehow plagued with this self-doubt and fear. There's like an epidemic, I would say, of brilliant women underestimating ourselves and not stepping up and playing big in the world. You'll see the picture of Michelle Obama right here. She talks even a lot about imposter syndrome when she was in the White House. So that's really what motivated me to step out of corporate and really focus on building a consulting and coaching practice, helping women to break through this internal glass ceiling so that they could advance in their careers. So that's all.
Fantastic. With everything you were saying, I was just like, wow. Like, you're talking on like all the points that relate to really confidently advancing your career. So with over 20 years in HR, you've seen a lot of things. What's like the most common, or what are the most common mistakes people make, early in their careers? I find with a lot of people is they never really like have a plan. So they don't even know how they want to grow. They're just taking each day as it comes, but we should be very strategic and intentional about our careers. So what are, some common mistakes that you find that, the everyday professional is making, in their career?
Yeah, so I alluded to this in the beginning, and I'm going to break down specifically right now the mindset portion of it. But when I think of having a fulfilling and impactful career, I think of three things. I think about mastering the inner game, so mindset. We look at people, at athletes like Michael Jordan, the late Kobe Bryant, etc. The reason they were able to show up powerfully every single day is that they work on their internal game and their mindset, right? That people underestimate, and it sounds like woo-woo, but the reality is that once you have your expertise down pat, it's the mindset that's really going to make a difference between you staying stuck and going to the next level. And then the second part of it, obviously, beyond the expertise, because we all know we have to know our stuff down cold, right? But the second part of it, as I just talked about, is this strategic career planning, knowing where you are now and then where you want to be. And then the third part is navigating this organizational politics. I call it savvy workplace strategies. And that's the umbrella under which I'm going to be talking about. Right now, when you talk about things that hold us back early in our career, one of the mindset shifts that we need is that we have this good girl or good student syndrome, right? All of us come in with our master's degrees and our bachelor's degrees, and we know we have to know our stuff down cold. And yes, expertise gets you in the door. Expertise gets you hired. Your resume gets you hired, right? But what's going to get you to that next level is beyond expertise. And so one of the biggest mistakes is focusing on your job only and not focusing on your career, which is a long-term plan, right?
Your job and your career are two different things.
Because people who are focused on their job are focused on doing good work. They're focused on delivering results. And that is good because that's the foundation. Because if you're not going to deliver results, trust me, the organization is going to get rid of you quickly, right? That's what's going to get you paid, delivering results. But what's going to get you promoted is more than that, right? It is. So when we think of somebody who focuses on their job, is they put their head down, they do the job well, they execute, but nobody knows who they are. So they find themselves in a cycle of working hard and delivering results, but nobody knows the great work that they are bringing to the table. And because nobody knows the value that they bring, they end up being a worker bee with no recognition and no rewards and no proof that they're bringing value to the table. And so that it's that long-term strategy. And so one of the things, I think there are many different components, but one of the things that somebody who focuses on their job and not their career does is that they focus on the work. But when you focus on your career, you also focus on how do you get that visibility? Is who knows you? How can you get that stretch assignment that's going to put you in front of decision makers that can use their social capital to open doors for you that you cannot open for yourself, and that your hard work is not going to open for you? I'm an immigrant. And one thing I know about immigrants is that we work hard, right? And we're raised with this strong work ethic, and that is great, but it's not enough. And so knowing how to network, to build relationships with decision makers, and to advocate for yourself, advocate and communicate the value and the impact you bring is what you need in addition to deliver a result, or in addition to your expertise.
Wow, fantastic. Everything you've said are, very typical with a lot of, especially immigrants, I find. So, we're hard workers. We migrate to this new country. We come with our skills and our experience and certificates because we work hard.
Yeah.
I met someone who said, I'm from Nigeria. And she said, wow, like you guys study so hard. She's in her 40s now, and she just decided to, go back to school and get a bachelor's because, the society here allows you to, start working with a high school diploma. And, that's really how she's grown through the ranks. And she's like, I meet an average African or Nigerian, and they have a master's degree at, in their early 20s. And she's like, you guys study so hard, and, guys have great work ethic. However, a lot of immigrants are still struggling to grow the ranks, move up, become a manager, a director, VP, it's, you hardly find them, make those sort of leaps, after, immigration. And not just immigrants, but a lot of people struggle with it, especially people that look like us and speak like us. There's that imposter syndrome. So how do we handle the imposter syndrome that's holding us back from advancing confidently?
Yeah. And look, the imposter syndrome or the self-doubt is real, right? There are many reasons for this, specifically for people of color, right?
Yeah.
Because the numbers show it, the statistics show it. And I'm going to focus right now on the numbers, specifically for women, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the C-suite, right? CEO, CFO, that kind of top leadership positions, McKinsey just released their annual Women in the Workplace study. Only for 2020, only 20% of the top leadership positions in corporations at the C-suite level is occupied by women, right? 1 out of 5, even after all these years, 1 out of 5. When we talk now, let's break it down in terms of women of color, which we both are.
Yeah.
That number is even more dire. It is not 4%, not 20%. It is 4%. It's really low.
Yeah.
And so the syndrome comes partially because not just because you don't necessarily, a lot of us don't necessarily have the background, right? A few of us are lucky to do, but like I'll speak for myself, and I would assume you as well. We weren't raised in a household where our parents were CEOs. Right. And so we weren't raised in a corporate culture. So the fact that we don't have that, that breeding, that corporate breeding from childhood, which some people are lucky enough and fortunate enough to have. That's one part of it. You don't have the background. But the second part of it is that when you look up, everybody doesn't look like you. They don't sound like you. They don't act like you. And here in the US, we talk about working twice as hard, because when you actually do get at the table, you actually don't have the luxury of being viewed as an individual.
Yeah.
Because if you fail, the implications of your failure is attributed to an entire race.
Right. Yeah, I think Black people don't.
Oh, see, I told you, don't put that black person. So the pressure is real. Pressure is real.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it takes some work. It's real work that's required, and it is possible, but takes some work to know that, listen, my hard work and my studying, like we just talked about, got me here at the table. And so now that I'm here at the table, I've got to own the fact that I bring something to the room that nobody else brings. That our success and our value is actually based on that difference. Especially now, because we are bringing a perspective, especially when we think about going into markets and emerging markets, right? The person from middle America that is, non-minority doesn't have that story. Maybe if you speak a different language, a second language, you're able to reach a market that, the average US or English speaking person cannot reach. And so not looking at that difference as a disadvantage, but looking at it as a unique perspective that you can bring to the table, that you can add to the table that no one else can. And so first of all, it's really coming back and stepping back and recognizing our story, recognizing our experience, recognizing our training, and taking some time to reflect on it, because you cannot celebrate and acknowledge what you don't even recognize that you have. So I think the first step to that is to really sit down and list an inventory of all your accomplishments, of all the things that you've done, so you can recognize that, listen, I actually bring something to this conversation, and I'm here because I earned this seat. So that's the very first step that you take. And then second, I would quickly say, I know you have more questions. Second, I would quickly say is to recognize that everybody has this feeling of not enough. It may be based on something different, but regardless is there. I always ask this question when I do workshops is, people, raise your hand if you've ever felt like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm too young, I'm too old, my English isn't good enough, I don't belong here. And 100%, no matter men, women, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, everybody puts their hand up. So the imposter syndrome is actually, I tell people that you take away the stigma from it when you normalize it by realizing that everyone experiences it. And then finally, recognizing that imposter syndrome doesn't come up when you're sitting on your laurels not doing anything.
Right.
When it comes up, it's because you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's learning and happening, or learning is and growing is happening. And so recognize that, okay, actually it's something to be celebrated. I'm feeling imposter syndrome. It's because I'm pushing myself.
Yes. Yeah, so true. And this only happens when you're stepping out of the comfort zone. You're doing things that you typically wouldn't do, right? And that's when I see someone who has over 10 years of experience saying, "Oh, I'm looking for an entry-level job." Like, why are you looking for an entry-level job? Why do you feel you need to? I want to hide under that, because I feel like I'm not experienced enough. I'm not smart enough, right? So nobody was even going to consider me for a senior position, just because imposter syndrome is telling me that, I'm not worth it.
Yeah. And that's exactly, and you know what? Whatever you believe is what you're going to get.
Yeah, true.
If you believe that you're not good enough and that you're not qualified for that next position, then nobody is ever going to see you in that light, regardless of your resume. And sometimes, even if you have, let's say you're missing a couple of years of experience, and you recognize that even though I'm missing these couple of years of experience, these are the qualities that I bring to the table. This is the actual experience that I bring to the table, which is a multiplier when we think about years. And you know that and you believe in that, trust me, confidence attracts confidence, right? True. If you believe in yourself, a lot of times other people will believe in you. But when you don't, they
That's
don't.
so true. And I say this a lot. I say people who get the jobs at the interviews are confident people. You don't have to be the most qualified to get a role, but your confidence, you emit that aura of confidence, and then they see the competence in you, and they give you a chance. I've met people who interviewed for a role, and during the interview they're told, we actually have an opening for a senior role, and we think you'd be better suited for that role based on the conversation we've had with you so far. Confidently owning what you bring to the table, your qualities, like you say, and not trying to undermine and downplay your experience and all the amazing things you've done. Right.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And then the second thing that sometimes people do, and I could tell you my own story, is not going for that big job, right?
Yeah.
So downplaying your experience, but also say, oh, I'm not going to apply because either I'm not ready, right? And it wasn't so much I didn't think I was ready. It was more like, oh, like people are going to think I'm not ready. So I was afraid of being criticized, afraid of what people would say.
Yeah.
So then I don't put my name in the hat. And the statistics tell you that women apply for jobs when they meet only 100% of the qualification, where men, 60%.
True. Yeah.
and so what happened with me, and if I could tell a real quick 6-second story, is that I didn't apply for the job. I didn't put my name in the hat because I was literally scared to do it. And what ended up happening was that somebody else got put in the job. And it was very interesting because even when that other person, she was put in the job, the leaders in the organization, I ended up doing the job for like 2 years because the leaders in the organization says, okay, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. Let me ask you. Let me come to you. Can you coach the team? Can you come to our retreat and give this talk? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I hit myself. It was like, oh my God, everybody else saw me at that level. Like, you know what happened when I didn't apply? And this is the feedback that I got from like 2 levels up in the organization, was that we actually didn't think that you were interested. We thought you were content to being down at this level. And so that job could have been yours, but because you didn't apply, we didn't think you were ambitious and you weren't interested. And it wasn't true. It's because I was afraid that those very people that thought I was ready would think I wasn't, and that I was thinking too high of myself.
So true. And this is something a lot of people, especially when you're, your early days in your career. I was speaking, I have a friend who became a senior manager in one of the big 4 consulting firms at 22, 23. So she kind of got out of school early, and, things started going so fast for her. And, she said, typically no one in their, early 20s will be looking for that kind of senior manager role. I mean, she'd gotten good years of experience and she was super smart. She's done an MBA. And when I think about it, a lot of people just, they don't even give themselves the opportunity. They start saying, oh, I'm too young. I'm too old. I'm not qualified. I don't have an MBA. I don't have an MSc. We start telling ourselves all these things that we do not have, and straight up disqualifying ourselves without even putting our foot forward, even in our own organizations where we work right now. Like you said, your bosses thought you were not ambitious. That's why you didn't apply. They thought you were content with being where you were. Meanwhile, you really wanted that role.
And ended up doing the job for like 2 years and not getting adequately compensated for it.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I encourage, and this is one lesson I learned from that experience from myself, as well as my years of coaching other people that have not put their name in the hat. And this is what I tell people: you can actually never lose if you put your name in the hat.
Oh yeah.
There's no losing. If you apply for a job you don't qualify for in an organization, and this is why. The first scenario is if you apply for the job and you get it, awesome. No sweat off your back. You got hired. But if you didn't get hired for the job, now people will know that, oh, she's serious about advancing. She's not playing around. She's ready to take action. She wants to go to the next level. So as a result, we need to either tell her what her gaps are, so that you can actually, so instead of listening to imposter syndrome, which actually doesn't give you real data, it says, oh, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, your English is not. No, actually, if you apply for the job, then you get real data. It's like, okay, this is the gap in your expertise that you need to fulfill. From a communication standpoint, these are some of the soft skills that you have to work on. Your EQ, your communication, they can actually map out the things. And what good organizations will do is that they will create opportunities or create experiences where you can fill the gap, right? Whether or not it's projects or an interim assignment, right? So that's the second reason. And the third, if your worst fears came to pass, that you're working hard and you apply for the job and nobody even acknowledges your existence, what does that tell you? And one of my favorite quotes that I always say is that it tells you that you are in the wrong place and you need to go where your talent is celebrated, not tolerated.
Exactly. I totally agree with you on that one. Totally agree with you. So for someone who is able to, sort of beat imposter syndrome and say, okay, I want to advance in my career, I want to move up the ladder. How can we get that visibility? It's also something people that are in immigrants, people of color, they also struggle with gaining visibility and, not being seen as someone who's, all over the place or being too forward, or, wants to be seen. How do we gain visibility in in corporate without, being seen in that light?
Okay. So your hard work, right? First of all, pay attention to the people who are paying attention to you. Sometimes we miss out on the people that would be invested in us, right? So if you're doing hard work and there's a person that even at one level above you, maybe your boss, that has already acknowledged verbally or even in your performance appraisal that you're doing good work, tell them, let them know what your ambition is. Because if you don't, it says you get not because you ask not, right? And so let them know, I'm interested in going to the next level. What do I need to do to get there? So one, be your own advocate. Vocalize your ambition. Let people know. I would say that's at least 50% of the battle. And once you do that, make sure you're speaking to the right person. I would say start with your manager, but don't end with your manager. Right? Who else is at your manager's level or at a higher level that you can start talking to? And so you can ask your manager to make an introduction, right, to them, so that, and you tell them why you want that introduction, because you want that visibility so that people will get to know you and sponsor you and mentor you, right? And then the other thing is that beyond the manager and their relationships, it's also making sure you're getting high visibility projects so that other people who are not necessarily in the line of command of your manager, especially cross-functional projects that will give you exposure to a wide range of people, you do that. And third, networking. Network on LinkedIn. Network, in your organization. Network in professional organization. Network in employee resource groups within your company. Network. Those are the three big things I would say people will need to do is make sure, I say, own your career. Don't allow anybody else to be in the driver's seat. Sit down and plan and recognize where the gap is. And if there's a gap in visibility, I just talked about projects and I just talked about making sure you meet the right people that can advocate for you.
Fantastic. Those are really great points, Kisha. I cannot overemphasize, being seen and known by people in other teams and other business units. So, there's finance, there's the sales team, there's marketing, there's project management, there's engineering, there's so many, business units, in an organization. Find ways to get involved in projects that are cross-functional. So you get to work with people in different teams and you're known across the organization. So when they say Kisha, oh, I know Kisha. Isn't that Kisha in HR? Yeah, I work with her on this project. Oh yeah, she's amazing. And people will talk and then people are like, who's this Kisha? I want to meet her, right?
Yes, because you can't hide and get exposure. You've got to step up. And specifically to this group, because there's probably a lot of women in this group, a lot of people of African descent. When you hear about ERG, employee resource groups, A lot of people utilize employee resource groups in not the most effective way. I tell people, you become leaders after you are delivering results, right? You don't try to like get all this visibility if you're not getting your job done. I have to speak as an HR person. Excuse me.
I'm with you on that one. You need to deliver results as well.
Yeah, you're gonna have results. Nobody doesn't want to talk to you if you're not getting your real job done.
Yeah.
But once you're able to do that and you've built a brand as someone who delivers results, now this is the time you build on that and you work on that visibility, because not all visibility is good visibility, right? Yeah. And so once you have that image and your reputation, you build on it. And then now you can use these, employee resource group, the women's networks, for example, or the African employee union, whatever. There are champions of those organizations that are of all ethnicities in most organizations. You have sponsors of those organizations of different functions. And so when you take leadership roles and you run projects in those kind of organizations and you combine that with the fact that you get your job done, man, those two I could tell you at least 2 jobs that I've gotten because of my involvement with both Women's Network and the African American Employees Union, because it gave me wider exposure beyond my boss. Because guess what? Sometimes your boss, no matter how great you work, if they have bias, sometimes they will never be your advocate. And so that's why you have to have a broad strategy and not just one plan.
Fantastic. Now, speaking about organizational politics, how do we, I know that's also one of your favorite topics. How do we grow past that? How do we, I don't want to say leverage politics, but how do we play the game, right? To help us advance in our careers. I've spoken to immigrants who feel like, their organizations, do not, promote people who are of color, beyond like a certain level. They feel like they are not given the opportunities other people like given. How do we advance, knowing that we may, face these challenges in our career? How do we advance?
Yeah, I think you make your strengths work for you. I would say most women and a lot of people of color, what they're really good at is building relationships, right? And people will advocate for who they know. There's no way they're going to, and so it actually goes back to the whole networking thing that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Because the reason why, and I will call it the boys club because it is, the reason why the boys club is still so strong is that they're golfing together, they're networking together, they're going after work and they're drinking beer together, right? But what I tell people is just like, okay, maybe you don't golf, but figure out a sense of commonality that you can build relationship, because the only thing that they don't just golf, right? There are interests that they have.
Yeah.
And so if you can connect with them on a project or a work level, but we just talked about that. But if you can't, like another manager I worked with a number of years ago, like no matter what, I felt like I couldn't connect with him. And finally, like it hit me. I was like, this guy runs. And listen, I need to lose some weight anyway.
So I got a running partner.
So let me start running. So I didn't actually start running with him, but what I did was I started running and I was just like, man, I just started running and I was so excited. But then I was like, I lost energy. Like, what do you do? Like, what do you do to build up your energy when you're running? And he gives me these goo packs. And guess what? Something in common. Now we have, because the way our brain works is we connect with people based on similarity. And if you're a Black, female, immigrant, make a long list, the areas of similarity may be limited. And so you got to get creative and figure it out. And so that's one strategy. I said, study people. If you want to be successful in your career and navigate politics, you got to be observant. You got to study people, figure out what they're passionate about, and connect with them on that level. And let me tell you, I used to take like 3-4 times I would go to this person to get approvals on different things. And once I started running and I had that connection, we would spend like 10 minutes talking about the running. I said, oh, by the way, I have this proposal that I have to run by you. And it was like, okay, good, go ahead. You know what? Organizations are filled with people. I don't even care if they're C-level, right? They're C-suite
Mm.
level. They're human
The
beings.
humans
They're
first. Exactly.
humans first. And so, like, the thing that holds a lot of people back is that we are so resistant to politics. And I'm like, listen, like, the minute you actually just accept that people are people and that you have to be strategic in terms of how you get to build that commonality and work through the politics, it's the easier it will become, right? And
Yeah.
so for me, it's number one, is stop resisting it, stop saying it's so horrible and so hard. Just like get up, and you have been a strong, tough person to get to this part in your life. The same strength, the same determination, the same ingenuousness that got you to this level can help you to be ingenuous enough to be able to navigate those politics. So for me, number one is people connection. And then number two, to navigate, we go back to, is build relationships with people that are actual decision makers. And I'm going to make one point on this. There's a whole concept of mentoring. And then there's the concept of sponsorship. And what I believe is a lot of times we are over mentored, meaning we're over taught things. We get so many mentors, but the people that are mentoring you, do they actually have social capital to hire you, to give you the promotion? Do they actually have influence? And if they don't, it's nice for them to be your friend, but you got to take your game up to the next level and say, I got to meet the people that can open the doors. Because you mentoring me is good when I want to learn something, but when I want the job, I need to find the decision maker. And so make sure you're building relationships with actual decision makers, not just people that look like you or people that you like.
Absolutely. I so agree. I mean, I've worked with people who, they never come out for, we have, team bonding activities, things like that. They always hang around people. I mean, there's nothing wrong to hang around, like you said, joining like the African American group or whatever, but also mingle with other people that don't look like you and learn more about them, learn about their cultures, learn about things that are of importance to them, right? And sort of build those connections and network. And sometimes people just want to be able to trust you. And it just takes, one conversation to get to know a little bit more about you. And then they see you as someone they can trust. And, that is one step, towards building that relationship and breaking that wall, breaking down that wall that was there previously.
And I would, to add on to that, I love the word that you use, trust, because people recognize this. If somebody's going to say, hire Eno for this job, you know what they're doing? They're putting their name and their neck on the line. They're co-branding. There's a word that is called co-branding with you. They're putting their brand with your brand. Because if you fail, they look bad, and nobody wants to look bad. So they have to get to know you and to trust you, not just like you. And if they're able to trust you and know that you can deliver and that you have a good personality, guess what? They're going to be much more likely to get that recommendation and open that door for you. And it doesn't just happen at the lower levels. I will never forget, we had a CEO of one of our organizations, and he was an African-American male, and he was at the CEO level, and he was given a role. They relocated him from the US and moved him over to Europe to be the CEO of a business in Europe. I don't remember what country it was, but it was a country that was, mostly not Black and mostly not exposed to African Americans. And when he went there, he had nothing in common with these people. So even at that level, this guy decided to take up cycling because I don't remember if it was the Netherlands, but the Netherlands is a little bit more diverse. So it might be another country, but regardless, he picked up cycling and he started cycling for like 26, 30 miles with his peers in this office. And it was once he started to build this level of commonality and similarity with them that by the time they got back to the office, they were ready to have a conversation with him, right? So recognize that it's not just because you're at a lower level that you need to do this. You're dealing with human beings. And so even people in senior positions have got to figure out how to navigate this politics.
Yeah, fantastic. And the truth is, as much as a lot of people do not want to hear it, it happens. It's everywhere, right?
It's
You can choose
everywhere.
to call it whatever you want to call it, but it is there. You might have another term for it, but the truth is, it is there. It's something that, I've experienced, back home, here in Canada. It's everywhere. You have, in the US. So it is everywhere. You can choose to call it whatever you want to call it, but it is there. So, but you need to know how to navigate through these challenges. Now, Kisha, something that you typically like to speak about, and something that you coach about, is also effective communication. How powerful communication is, and how we can leverage communication to actually advance confidently in our careers. So, would you mind sharing with us, your top tips with regards to communication and how we can use effective communication to grow in our careers?
Yeah. So communication is a result of what's going on inside of you, right? So if you're not feeling confident or you don't believe the value that you bring to the table, like all the external tactics, you could take classes and do all these strategies online, but
Yeah.
tactics don't work if the foundation isn't good. And so again, I go back to the tip I started out with, is recognizing your inherent value that you bring to the table. And once you're able to, practice that and own that, look for external ways in which you diminish yourself in your language. Okay. So, for example, a very common one that I only spend like a minute on before I go on the others is saying, I'm sorry. Women do it all the time, and I hear it's a Canadian thing too. You could tell me.
Well, Canadians are very, very polite. So, yeah.
Right. And it's fine. If you say I'm sorry, I think it's actually good. It shows good emotional intelligence for you to say sorry for something when you did something wrong. Yeah. Here's the challenge. You're saying sorry for something that you didn't do. It's like you're apologizing for being in the room. You're apologizing for your existence. So instead of consistently, I'm sorry to interrupt you. No, like you're here to conduct business and have a professional conversation with someone. So why are you apologizing for interrupting someone, right? Yeah. It puts you in a position of low power, right? And people begin to look at you, even if it's unconsciously, at a lower level. Because you're like, I don't mean to bother you. I'm so sorry. It's very apologetic.
I just wanted to have a quick chat with you about this project. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bother you.
And you just said the second one, just, right? Yeah. So it's not just I'm sorry. It's all these minimizing words that we use. I just wanted to say this. I just take the just out of your vocabulary. So, if people are interested, I actually have a free guide with 10 examples of languages such as just, I'm sorry, or like maybe, like, are you sure or are you not? Like, especially you talk business, I don't want to hear maybe. I want to hear whether or not you're sure that you did the analysis right, you looked at the numbers, not maybe. And so those are diminishing language that takes away from your credibility. It takes away from your authority. And so people can get a free copy of this guide if they would like it. I would be happy to send it to people for free.
Yeah. Fantastic. The things you're sharing about communication, it's so true. There's, especially the apologizing and, and then also trying to make the person feel, I don't mean to bother you right now. Those kind of words, kind of affect our communication. Oyi says, completely agree. Sorry and just are two words I want to lose in my everyday life. And I agree. Especially if you're used to saying sorry or just or maybe, these terms. Say, for example, you send an email and the person says, the date should be October 17, not 18. And you say, I'm so sorry. Why don't you just say, thank you, Kisha, great catch. I'm going to amend that right now.
You got it. That's literally what you said. Thanks for pointing that out. Great catch. So you are being polite. You're thanking them. Yeah. You're complimenting them, but you don't have to do that at the expense of blaming yourself.
Right.
Putting down yourself.
Right. Yeah. So something I want us to, quickly chat about is the fear of success, which is really a thing. There's a thing which is the fear of success. How do we handle the fear of success? It's something that a lot of professionals face, in their careers is, if I'm giving that, managerial position, if I'm giving that senior position, like, can I really do it? Can I handle it? It's going to be a lot more challenging. I'm going to have to be reporting to the CEO now. I'm going to be in all these executive board meetings. Do I know what to say? I'm going to be making presentations now. Am I really great at this? Can I really present? Is my grammar right? My accent? They start remembering all these things, like
everything
fear that just drowns them. And even when they get into those roles, they still sort of struggle, with. And I've seen people who are in managerial roles who you can tell that, they're not comfortable. They feel intimidated by, even their subordinates, the people that report to them, because they just feel like
they don't belong.
They don't belong there. There's that fear. How do we handle,
How do you handle that?
Yeah.
That fear could be multi-layered, right? It depends, right? There are many reasons that people could be afraid of success, right? A couple of them are, one is that you are afraid of being alone, right? If you're going to be the first one in your community, right? If you're the first one in your friend group that's getting this big job, right? Or even your coworkers that you have a strong relationship and you get promoted over them and they report to you, you're afraid of breaking rapport or the relationship.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's number one, is recognizing why you're afraid. Second, you could be afraid of the responsibility that comes with leader, because you can't hide. Now you have to be out there. And what I tell people is that nobody in a C-level role is free of development opportunities, right? Not even the prime minister or the president of your countries don't have developmental opportunities. Everybody has things that they need to work on. And what leadership gives you is, I call it, one, besides being an entrepreneur, which is also leadership, it's the biggest personal and professional development opportunity. Because all the things that used to hold you back, it's scary, but it can also be the fire you need, because change doesn't come in comfort, right? It can also be the fire you need to confront the things that you were afraid of, knowing that. And I go back to remove the shame and the stigma from it, because everybody has something. I used to have a CEO that he would, when he came into the role in the organization, he would do videos and broadcasts, and like half of the things that he would say, I wouldn't hear him, but mumble. And I'm like, somebody tell him. Articulate his words. And he was in the role for like 18 months. And between the first employee broadcast he did and the last one, and literally all the employees night and day, wow, we can actually hear him. And so we get to see leaders. This is the thing. When you're not a leader, you are sometimes not developing, or you're developing in the shadows. But when you're a leader, it's all out there, and that can be scary. But the one thing I say is, like, I look at other people that are in big positions all the time, and I find their flaws. Not because I want to make them look bad, but it reminds me that they're human. And they're doing it despite being perfect. They're doing it. Yeah. And so in the same way that they're doing it with their imperfections, so can I. And where I am now, because we're dynamic people, a year from now, as long as we keep working on it, we're going to get better. It's part of the journey.
True. Fantastic. I so agree. Something that I tell people is that, we're human first, and no one, even the CEO of your organization, is not 100% ready for that role on day one. No, there's still a lot the person has to learn. Even being the CEO, they may show up and you're like, oh, that's the big boss, right? But, deep down, he's not 100% ready, because he doesn't know what that role is going to throw at him. He doesn't know, what that year is going to be like financially, right? But, they come there and, give you the hope that you need, tell you about all the amazing things they're going to do for the year, and, hoping that they achieve all that for the organization. and give you these promises of your bonuses and all that. But the truth is, just like you, he's coming to work every day with the
Every
hope
day.
that he gets better. So no
Yeah.
one is 100% ready. So when you see a job description, don't think, oh, I need to be 100% ready. I need to mark and check all the lists, everything on this list before I can, go for this higher position or apply for this job. That's where we kind of hold ourselves back in, advancing, in our careers. Someone has a question.
And
Right?
let me add to that before you ask the question. What
Sure.
big point there is that I want to make sure I highlight it, because I don't think I highlighted it as much. And we talk about fear and being afraid of stepping forward.
Yeah.
I don't want to fool anybody. Like, courage, the definition of courage is feeling the fear and do it anyway. If you want to be a leader, you've got to actually make friends with the feeling of discomfort. You're never going to feel comfortable if you are growing. And so the minute we start believing that confidence and courage means the absence of fear is the minute we sabotage ourselves. It's okay. Do it with your knees shaking and your teeth shattering. It doesn't matter. As long as you don't stop, you win. So that's the number one thing I want to say there.
Absolutely. Do it afraid, for sure. So Nuruddin says, in the past, I worked in an organization that limits employees on the basis of their mode of employment. For instance, contract staff cannot be promoted regardless of how much contributions they bring to the table. In addition, such limitations to career growth are documented in the company's policy. How can one leverage his abilities to navigate such a toxic work environment?
Okay, I can explain because I've already been there. And Nuruddin, I think that's your name.
Yes.
Nuruddin, let me actually speak to you from my HR standpoint, and actually as my first job I was a contracted employee.
Yeah.
Now the organization could be toxic for many reasons, but that's not the reason they're toxic. They have specific policies in place that govern how people who are actually not employees of a organization are. So my number one thing for you is either work super hard so you can get hired so that you can be promoted, right? Because they don't actually have the ability to promote you because you're not technically an employee of their company. Or you find a place that will hire you so that that company can promote you. Like, I would say, try not to live in this contract situation forever. My first job, for the first year, I was a contracted employee. And then I told myself, I was just like, if they don't hire me within 6 months, I'm going to find another job where I can actually be considered for promotion. And so the contract could be a stepping stone into being hired in the company.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the historical practices of the company. If the company has a habit of hiring contracted employees, then you have a chance. But if they have never hired a contracted employees before, I would say go find another company to work for so that you can get hired and get promoted. So it's definitely an idea of especially in this COVID where organizations are trying to save money, it might be a situation that you're in temporarily because you need a paycheck, but I would say give yourself a cutoff time. And if you're not hired within that time frame, because you're not going to get promoted unless you're hired. As someone, as I said, has done it before, I got hired, then I got promoted, then I left. You might have to leave and get hired somewhere else.
Yes, 100%. I agree. Like Kisha said, at the start of our conversation is, you need to be able to differentiate your job from your career, right? Your job is what you do right now, giving you a paycheck every month or every 2 weeks. However, your career is me, how do I want to advance? What are the things I'm going to do to get me to where I want to be? So your job is like the vehicle that's getting you to your destination. So if this vehicle isn't moving as fast as I want to, I'm changing it. Right? I got a new vehicle. If I don't want to drive anymore, I got a motorbike. Right?
Exactly.
I'm just not stopping. Right? If the motorbike isn't getting me there, how about I get on a plane? Yep. Whatever takes me to my destination, really. Right? But whatever to constantly deliver value, deliver results, network within your organization. It's so important. You should be known. Find ways to be known, to be seen, and find people that will advocate for you. And I'm not saying you should go and beg people to help you or to speak for you, but as you build relationships and you show your value, people are great. I've worked with people who are fantastic that I never even reported to directly or anything, but because of the work that I've done and how I built that relationship with them, they were actually fighting for me in situations where my own manager wasn't, right? So, focus on doing that. And then if that's not working in the organization, or there's this culture of, contractors had never get converted to permanent staff, then find, you leverage the experience you've gotten over the years and move on.
And go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Fantastic conversation. Fantastic. All right. So we're going to wrap it up right now. I'll just like you to, share your last words with us, a few words with us based on everything we talked about. And then also, talk to us about Own Your Power, which is also your coaching program.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The final words I would say, just to wrap up, I alluded to this before, is that if we don't believe in ourselves, if we don't know our value and own that value, no one else will. And so going back to the 3 strategies, to making sure that in order to have that impactful and fulfilling career that you want, the 3 things I'm going to say, write it down. Work on mastering your inner game, mastering your mindset, breaking through those limiting beliefs. And we talked about some of them today, but there are a lot more, right? Number 2, having a long-term strategic career plan, right? Some people spend more time planning their weddings one day than they do planning their career. Have a plan, right? Know what you bring to the table. And then the 3rd thing is learning how to navigate workplace politics in a savvy way so that you win. Right. So those are 3 things.
Savvy.
You got to be savvy about it. You got to be smart about it. Right. So those are the 3 things. And those are the 3 things I cover in my Own Your Power masterclass, and as well as in my coaching program. So I could tell you a lot more about the program. That's the 3 things it's focused on. We focus on overcoming self-doubt and fear, in addition to everything. Master your inner mindset. So what I would say is, if you want to learn more about it, I actually have a free masterclass on Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. But if people are not able to make it to it, just send me, go to my website, www.yourpowerunleashed.org, and let me know. I could do one on Europe time, Africa time, because I realize 7 p.m. for some people might be a little bit late. But on that masterclass, I go through so much more. And so I invite you to that website. It's at KishaWynter.com is where you can get to that masterclass.
Fantastic. The conversation today has been awesome. And thank you for sharing, all these tips, everything that we know we should do, which is 1, mastering your inner game, right? Which is your mindset, learning how to navigate through, politics in a very savvy way, owning your value, understanding the value you bring to the table, and also, leveraging that, building networks to grow in your career. Kisha is also going to be at the Career Mastermind that we're having. So if you're interested in that, check my featured posts. I have that over there. And also on my profile, you would see it somewhere because I posted about it. So if you want, more, where we're going to be talking more in depth about a lot of these things, because this is very high level, then join us in the mastermind where, Kisha is going to be sharing way more with regards to the things that you should do and say, with a lot of the strategies that she's used to become where she is today, over 20 years, becoming a HR leader. So thank you so much, Kisha. It's been fun having you here. You've shared so many insightful tips for all of us, and we say thank you. We're grateful. And on that note, have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Have a great
Thank
Friday.
you all. Thank you all.
Bye. Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.